Ladies and gentlemen, a very empowering speech there by Gaurav Chand. Can I draw your attention to the two ladies that we have in the wings? They are our hostesses and they are holding the microphone. So please do not feel that you have to shout. Just look around the room for either of these two lovely ladies who will offer you a mic for the later panel session. So, gentlemen, allow me to introduce you to your third speaker today, which is Stephen Porter, who is Chief Information Officer, Touchstone Behavioral Health. Stephen Porter has extensive experience in applying enterprise class technology solutions across multiple verticals in the SMB space. Ladies and gentlemen, please warmly welcome Stephen Porter to the stage.
Well, good morning. I want to spend a little time today talking about enabling innovation through efficient workforce mobility. And the reality of it is I'm not going to tell you anything you haven't heard before, because I stole these ideas from everything that you guys do. We're a very small organization, and I have no need to reinvent the wheel. But there are some interesting things that we've done as an organization. So, it was very nice this morning that Arun was able to talk about the history of technology. I'm going to be a little more brief about it. We'll briefly go over the history of mobility. I want to talk a little bit about who Touchstone Behavioral Health is, what we've done. Take a look at our immediate future, and then look a little bit beyond that, maybe a 48 to 60 month vision of where we can be. So, I was a little concerned yesterday when Mark said he had a quote from Einstein that he was going to steal some of my thunder, but one of the great quotes that he made was, "Logic will get you from A to B, imagination will take you everywhere." And I really think that that's what IT is all about at this point in time. So briefly on the history of mobility, think back that we started with the road warriors. These are the folks that are out, laptop computer, a dial-up modem. They enter their work, they go back to the hotel room or home, they sit there and they plug in. Hopefully no one else picks up that line and knocks them off work, but they connect back in and feed our data information systems back into it. A few years later, they got cell phones. And you can see them everywhere, hotel lobbies, airports, brick to their ear, talking back to the office. But that was really the epitome of being out and being mobile. A few years later, telecommuters really became the norm in that we could take our data center and move it into the home. So a lot of our information workers really started using VPN connectivity and working from the home, still a lot of dial-up modem, but they had the flexibility of choosing their workplace. Remote workers are where most of us have gotten to at this point in time, where we're actually starting to empower these folks to have push technology, maybe a laptop, a broadband air card so they've got internet connectivity where they go, log in, receive that corporate email, have that information available to them. I really think where we're going to, though, is the persistent connection. And that is bring your own technology, ubiquitous connectivity, access to the data everywhere, all the time. For better or worse, our leash has become extremely short. So, I want to talk a little bit about Touchstone Behavioral Health, the evolution that we've gone through. Another interesting quote from Confucius is, "Only the wisest and stupidest of men never change." Now, I will admit that Touchstone has changed dramatically over the last several years. Touchstone was formed in 1968 in Phoenix, Arizona, as the Arizona's Boys Home. Really the place that kids got sent instead of going to a correctional facility. Not exactly the cream of the crop. Over the years, we've evolved and become an organization that is moved away from treatment facilities to doing outpatient services for evidence-based medicine. Our goal is to work with families and the children in order to give the children an opportunity to build a better life before their 18th birthday. We are capitated from a funding perspective. We're a nonprofit, which means we receive money from various state organizations. It could be the schools, the courts, but we receive a flat amount of payment and are expected to give services over the course of the year. So we're really in a situation that by improving productivity, seeing more clients, we still don't make more money. So it's an interesting paradigm to work in that we have no real ROI on our IT projects. But we do have a lot of documentation requirements. Working with state governments, not only do we provide services to the children, but we do have to make sure that the 47 forms need to be completed and signed and submitted before we ever get paid. So it is a very labor-intensive program. About 5 years ago, when I came on board, we made the decision to move to an electronic medical record system. And the first iteration that I inherited was a premise system, an organization that was really working very hard to transition their hospital software into a behavioral mode. And after spending 5-6 months talking to these people, I had the task of walking into the executive management team and saying, all the money that we've spent, all the time that's been devoted to this isn't going to work. Give it up, kiss the money goodbye, or get the attorneys involved to see if any of it can be recovered. But the only way this is going to work is for the integrators who are trying to make it happen. Our users are not going to be able to use this system. It's very non-intuitive to our clinical users, and give it away. So we changed. We found a provider that, well, let's see, when about 10 years ago, this would have been called an ASP, an application service provider. When we signed up with it, it was a hosted provider. About a year later, it would have been known as software as a service. And today, we're in the cloud. Now, believe it or not, we haven't changed at all, but the terminology has. So it's kind of fun seeing where the marketing goes with this as to what services we're providing. But the realization was, as we signed up for this service, going to the hosted solution allowed us to maintain our core competencies within the organization, that we provide services to children. We have a very small IT staff devoted to issues of connectivity, being able to print, making sure that the hardware is up and maintained. But I really never had the staff to say, we're going to support a server farm 24/7 and deal with that storage growth. So we made the choice based on who we are and what we're going to be. And it allows us to actually, as an organization, spend more money providing services back to the children. But with that in mind, our clinical director, about 2 months before launch, said, hey, this is a web-enabled system. We ought to give everybody laptops and turn them loose out in the field. I kind of smiled because this is the direction that I'd hoped we would take. I had suggested it a little bit. But with 2 months to obtain, provision, deploy this number of laptops, and then change the culture of the organization. Now, you have to remember that in 2006, Touchstone was still a very mom-and-pop organization, although they'd been around 40 years. IT was that department back in the corner that hindered process rather than improved it. We had a couple of servers, a couple of shared workstations, and services were provided by people carrying pad and paper out into the field, taking notes, coming back into that shared workstation, going online, finding the proper form to fill out, getting that printed out, making copies, going back out into the field because one of the regulations of the state is signatures for everybody. So you get all the signatures, come back, make more copies, mail them out. Finally, this particular service can be submitted for billing. The process was averaging about 72 days. When we decided to give everyone laptops and broadband cards and electronic signature pads, USB devices, just plug into the machine, they could go out, do their documentation, take all of their notes, capture all of their signatures, come back in and submit for billing. By business rule, we set it to 3 days. Even though we don't batch every 3 days, we could have physically reduced our turnaround on cash from 72 days down to about 3. But it became quite a project and very early adopters on this mobilization. Now, having done that, we took the success of that win and consolidated 2 physical locations into a new campus, built out some infrastructure upgrades that fiber interconnects between the buildings, gigabit PoE out to the desktop, VoIP system, virtualized servers and storage, a lot of excessive bandwidth, really took advantage of having the win to build out a new model for social service providers. We also enhanced mobility. Instead of broadband cards and cell phones, we said, we can get rid of some of this. We took away the broadband cards. We gave them smartphones. What we had discovered was that the vast majority of times that they used the broadband card, they were really doing nothing more than going online, getting their email, checking their next appointment, and then moving on. So what we've discovered is that by using the smartphone, giving them that email mobility, we have reduced the amount of time required just to gather that information. Now, one of the things we're certainly looking for is how do we tie that information from Outlook into the current GPS locators on the phone so that we can say, we know where you physically are right now. We have the address for your next appointment. And here's turn-by-turn directions to avoid the traffic jam. Doing a tablets pilot. Tablets are a marvelous device, a good display device. Not sure that they're proper for everyone, but there is an opportunity there to certainly see where it can go. But it is, of course, a pilot operation. Virtual desktops, same thing. I would love to get out of the business of owning client hardware completely. The idea of bringing your own technology is very appealing to me, but what we've discovered so far is that the cost of ownership, the CapEx expenses of buying the additional servers, storage, processing power, the ROI isn't there for an organization of our size. I don't know if you know who William Gibson is, probably best known for coining the term cyberspace. So we've all run across that once or twice, but Gibson has said that the future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed. And we've seen the Gartner hype cycle, so we realize that everybody goes along path at a different rate, but we're all moving down that same path. Some of the things that we see coming up in the next 18 months is to increase SaaS utilization, probably as it relates to email, spam, some of the data protection there. Certainly looking at security as a service, as more of the information that we're dealing with is Web 2.0, web-enabled. And finally, we're looking at storage, disaster recovery, and business continuity. Interesting release from Gartner just this past week that they're saying that currently about 1% of the SMB space is using the cloud for business continuity, disaster recovery. By 2014, they anticipate that to be over 30%. Obviously, there are a lot of questions revolving around that. We're not going to go into them right now, but the cloud's still a little nebulous. There is a better way to do it. Find it. Thomas Edison, been around forever. Some of the things that we see coming up, telemedicine and video, the idea of having a case manager embedded at a physician's office, being able to bring a client into a room and do a real-time consult with a physician without incurring the additional transportation costs. It allows us to increase our reach out into the community, and the embedded locations obviously give us a lot of flexibility. Big data, business intelligence, going to be the topic of conversation not only for the next day and a half, but probably the next year and a half. We are gathering so much information today about who these children are, what their diagnoses are, what the treatment plans are, what the intervening events are. We should be able to tell with some reliability if and when a child is going into crisis. And by our definition, crisis is when someone is at imminent risk to do harm to themselves or others. So if we can start picking up on that a little bit better, we've got some tremendous opportunities to improve the quality of care. And then just in general medical research, some of the information that we can gather. Are there associations between some of the things that we're diagnosing now and physical illness? Hey, I'm just an IT guy. I really don't know, but those are some of the areas that we can look at. Real quickly, challenges: who owns the data? Where's it stored? The global regulations as we move forward. It has become a global society. We're already seeing tourism, medical tourism, people coming out of the US and going to places like India for specific treatments for considerably less money. How are we going to ensure the privacy? Banking regulations, same thing, that we've got all of this information that is moving internationally. At some point in time, we've got to decide how all of that is going to be regulated. But real quickly, just would like to say we can't solve problems by using the same kind of thinking that we used when we created them. And open it up to questions real quickly. I think we've got another minute or so. Here we go.
There's just a small clarification that I wanted. Somewhere along the presentation, you used the term embedded locations. What did you mean by that?
I'm sorry, can't quite hear.
You used the term embedded locations. What did you mean by that?
From our perspective, it's embedded locations is being able to go out into a community and set up an office with a video presence, or into a physician's office that has a video presence and a case manager, that rather than putting an entire office out there, all we're doing is setting up a point-to-point video and being able to provide services. In behavioral services, obviously body language has a lot to do with everything, and so that face-to-face interaction is very important. The quality of high-definition video now, the bandwidth that's available, certainly makes that a lot more viable now than it was even 3 years ago.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Hi, Steve. Thanks for your presentation. My question is, bottom line, have you created a tangible difference to the business in terms of innovation of service delivery with mobility?
There has been a tangible difference in the business itself. We work a little bit differently because we have no physical ROI. I move everything in terms of 15 minutes. I look at it that if I can complete a project that gives each of my providers an additional 15 minutes a day, whether they stop in and get a cup of coffee, or walk into a closet and pound their head into a pillow and scream, or see another child. Ultimately, what we're doing there is reducing the stress on our case managers. And these are people who grew up wanting to work with children. They didn't grow up wanting to be computer users. They're not technically savvy. So trying to reduce their workload, ultimately what it means is now I've got people that work together longer as a team, so they are better informed as they stay longer. It reduces the churn that I've got, the burnout and the churn on employee turnover, so my recruiting and training costs go down, and our side effect is better care for the children. But 15 minutes a day in our organization equates to about 8,000 hours a year that people have available within the state of Arizona to see more kids. And so that's really how I'm measuring our ROI.
Just a follow-on question to that. So has the business perception of your team changed to an enabling function rather than just the back office?
It has, but innovation is swings like a pendulum, that we can go so far and we move forward, and then I see that we start to swing back. Cost containment is a very real problem for organizations everywhere. One of the things that we're looking at right now in Arizona is some very serious budget constraints. For an organization that provides services to children, the easiest place to cut is IT. So we run into that. Yes, we need to continue to spend. It is a journey. It's not a destination. Technology innovation continues to move forward. Security requirements continue to evolve. And it is an ongoing battle with the rest of the executive management team as far as how do we continue moving forward and staying one step ahead of the curve rather than falling back behind. If you have any answers, please, let's talk. No other questions? Well, thank you very much. I certainly appreciate being here today, and it's been a great honor to have a chance to talk to such a distinguished group. Thank you.